to silence speech about Israel.
That's right.
And that too has quite a history. And the current Israeli government, or rather the numerous governments under Benjamin Netanyahu, have been pushing this agenda of arguing that any criticism of Israeli policies, not least of Israeli occupation policies, this precedes, of course, events in Gaza, is anti-Semitic.
That's right.
And I've been listening to some of the interviews with Jewish students who feel threatened, and often it appears to me, and of course we don't have good research on that at the moment, but it appears to me that many of them feel threatened because they see a Palestinian flag, because they hear people calling for intifada.
Who gave them the right to rule?
Shaking off. There's a very similar
what
word
rule
in
do they
Hebrew
have?
for it. Leitnael. It's what the
place
dog
do they
does
have?
when it shakes off water.
When
it's
you
to shake
invade
off
and
the occupation. And there are Jewish students often who are influenced by the Israeli friends who feel that that is threatening. But there's nothing threatening about opposing occupation and oppression. That is not anti-Semitism. You can agree with it or not. Even being anti-Zionist is not anti-Semitic. There are hundreds of thousands, if not more, of ultra-Orthodox Jews, including some who are in the Israeli government, who are anti-Zionist. But they're not anti-Semitic. They see themselves as the epitome of Jewishness and Jewish tradition. So there's politics and there's prejudice. And if we don't make a distinction between the two, then what we are actually doing is enforcing a kind of silence over the policies that have been conducted by the Israeli government for a long time, and that ultimately culminated now in the utter destruction of Gaza.
That's right.
We were showing images of the Brown protest where you're a professor. And some of the signs read, Brown divest now. Another said, no others like Hisham. Of course, referring to the Brown University student Hisham Oratani, the Palestinian-American student who was visiting his grandmother in Burlington, Vermont with his two best friends, also Palestinian-American, and they were shot by a white man from his porch. Hisham was the most wounded. He is paralyzed. And then you have at Columbia the students who were skunked, that kind of chemical that is used where I think it sent 8 Columbia students. They were pro-Palestinian activists protesting to the hospital. And it turned out that it was one of the people who skunked them was a former IDF Israeli military soldier who was studying at Columbia University.
And move forward.
Look, first of all, about Hisham, I mean, this is just a terrible tragedy. He and his two friends. This sort of combines both the politics and the rhetoric of hate that you find these days in Israel, and of course American discourse, which have unfortunately converged, and that's just horribly tragic. This case of skunking, over the last few months, there have been many demonstrations in Israel against this government's policy. And the government has taken to using water cannon, often in a really brutal manner, that is firing it directly at the people's faces, which is legally not allowed, and using this kind of stinking water skunk in central streets in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem, again, to shut down any debate in Israel. And it's very sad to see that being also imported to American streets. Let me say there's an interesting difference between what is happening in Israel regarding Gaza, what is happening in the United States. In Israel, heads of universities have come out just recently with a statement, a warning about anti-Semitism on American campuses. which to my knowledge does not exist in any significant form. That is, as I said before, not anti-Semitism, but protest against Israeli policies. These same heads of universities in Israel have been collaborating in shutting down criticism in Israel itself. And there was a very tragic case with a Palestinian professor of the Hebrew University, Nadera Shalhoub, who was first sort of attacked by the university and later was arrested by the police, mistreated really badly, kept overnight in a jail, stripped, humiliated. This is a full professor in her 60s and a well-known scholar. Because she had expressed empathy with what was happening in Gaza. And the main difference is that not only did university leaders not come out in support of their own faculty member, but there are many students at the universities that are actually supporting these kinds of policies. And I think we should be proud that in American universities, students actually are demonstrating in favor of those who are being oppressed and now who are being killed.
That's right.
And they're doing it, first of all, because it's the right thing to do.
That's right.
They're doing it also because they are American citizens.
That's right.
It is American taxpayers' money that is paying for the arms that the United States is shipping in vast amounts to Israel so as to destroy Gaza.
That's right.
And they have every right, and in fact, they have a duty to protest against these kinds of policies.
So we pay to get our ass.
Thank you so much for being with us, Professor of how.
This is something that we must fight against. We're not fighting against it because of racism. This fight is not about anti-Semitic, which they're going to use against the righteous in order to make the world think that, or the minds of the people that they think they can convince into believing that the right is wrong. This is what I'm saying, how they use words of speaking in ways that sounds like the truth, but it's a way of covering up the garbage that they do. So the only way they can change that is to make you feel guilty, and they seem to be right, using muscle, might, and even killing and murdering people in order to keep their narrative. This must stop now. This is something that's been going on. This is what caused many people to be in slavish conditions. It wasn't just the Africans. Don't think for 1 minute that the slavery that you see, that they try to always portray as only black people. Many other races of people have endured this. What proved that and where we have gotten to now has proven, even with Vietnam and the Gaza Strip for 75 plus years or more. Imagine how long the Vietnam War went on. Do you think what they did in Vietnam was right? Do you think the people protesting against the killing and the murdering of the Vietnam people and their fight for liberation was right? Huh? Because the demons always try to use good words and tongue. You see, because they use people like people who deal in science and in astrology and all this to write their speeches. You see what I'm saying? So they could put a spell on your mind to make you believe in them. But when you look at the actions of their hand, it shows clearly that they are not practicing what they preach. And what they preach is not what is giving out to the people in the rightful ways. It is put out in a scientific way to make you believe that. But the people now are waking up, because this is the age of Aquarius. And all must be revealed in all ways. You know what I'm saying? All must stand for the fight now. We must not back down. Because if we back down to these beasts, they will win. And they will one day try to enslave the whole world. They will try to enslave even humanity in order to feed their bloodthirsty pedophilia nastiness and evil being in themselves to breed off into the world while we sit in complete oppression and captivity, concentration camps, quarantine camps, and all kinds of bullshit. This is why they did the pandemic, and this is why they put that in people as well. So when the time comes, they will use that as a method of saying they could lock up every single body that they feel they could lock up. We must not allow this. This is what's going on in Gaza. You have the British, the French, the Ottoman Turks, many Arabs that came into Africa. They were not indigenous to Africa. Even going back to the time of what date was that? Let me hold on 1 second, people. You know what I'm saying? I forgot the date, but the date, even going back to the last, what we call the last journey into slavery, right? That took place in 1860. 1860. You see what I'm saying? They have been coming into Africa and doing bullshit for years, going back in the 1800s and so forth and so on. These people, you know what I'm saying, have taken many of our things in Africa, Egypt, you know what I'm saying? Even people like Expedition Now, that dumbass, is in Africa, you know what I'm saying, trying to act as if that Egyptians were white. No, they were not. They were Africans. They ceased to destroy the gods of the planet to make themselves gods. They came into Africa and even came in with guns, like the coming of guns and shit into Africa, you know what I'm saying, and many corrupt leaders, and caused such a catastrophe for many, 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 many years in Africa, calling themselves slicing up Africa. You know, the French take over here, the British take over there, the Ottoman Turks take Egypt, blah, 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 and slicing up my father's and glorious mother of the cosmos itself, land, for themselves, while they remove the original people of the land, the chosen people, the true chosen people. You know what I'm saying? Now we call on who that we must hear from, that I may say, I want to hear from the Mayor Minister Farrakhan and his words on this matter, because I have not heard from these churches in all ways. Only certain individuals. Notice that they have stayed out of this conflict, that they think it's only the Gazan and the Palestinian people. But this goes beyond the Palestinian people and the Gazan. This goes deep. So let's move on. Let's listen.
Go to democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.